Welcome back. Today we are going to make a soda can, just like this one, out of in Maya, and then we're going to crush it using nCloth. Of course, you can see that in the picture behind me here. Now, if you are interested in some of my other videos, please visit my YouTube channel, Paul Fritz Animation. Subscribe if you like what you see. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a look at the project. Right here in Maya is where I created the can that you saw in the opening scene, along with the two crushed cans using nCloth. Right here is nCloth, and there's several different ways we can get to this state. There are some presets that we'll take a look at inside of nCloth, and then we can also take a look at the dynamic properties, and that's what I ended up doing, was using the dynamic properties. But you can certainly play around with all of these and just kind of come up with a design that you like. Now, as you can see with the can highlighted here, we have a lot of divisions, and I did smooth this can out, so it made even more divisions into this can. And then, so it takes a very long time when you hit play for it to actually go through the process of crushing the can. In the video, in this lesson, I'm going to try to get away with a much less number of divisions, just enough so that we can actually get it to do what we want it to do still, but not so many that it takes so long for it to calculate the nCloth as it starts to collapse in on itself, as we can see here. Now, we may not get away with that, but we'll see just what we can do. I'll show you how to play around with those. And of course, different number of divisions are going to cause your model to behave in different ways, and we'll see that as we work through this lesson. All right, so let's go ahead and let me that back to the beginning. I'm going to go ahead and create a new project. So I'm going to open up project window down here, and this should open up. I'm going to create a new project, and I'm also going to call this one Soda. I'm going to call this one Soda Can Crush Demo, something like that. I'm going to put it into my project folder, and I'm going to leave all of these as default, and I'm going to go ahead and accept it. And then I'm going to go ahead and set my project to that new project that we just created. And then I'm going to go ahead and actually I should have probably done this a little bit differently. We're going to go ahead and go to new scene, and I'm not going to save this one. Now I'm going to set this project. Got it a little bit out of order. Sorry about that. We're going to go ahead and set it, so now everything should automatically save into that project. What I'm going to do for this is I'm also going to use some reference images of this soda can that I showed you at the beginning. And I was just holding it for the camera, but you can't see it, so that doesn't really help much. Sorry about that. But anyway, you know what a soda can looks like. And I have some images that I took of a soda can, of this same soda can. I took some pictures of it. You can see there's a bottom view, a side view, and a top view. I'm going to put those into a Dropbox link that will be attached to this video, so that you can download these if you want to. But if you want to take pictures of your own soda can, or if you want to download some off the internet, you can do that as well. The important thing is to make sure that as we do this, you try to get as straight on of a shot as you can to minimize the angles. I still didn't do it perfectly, and you're going to see that as we go through this. Oops, that's the Photoshop thing we worked on. We'll work on, and you can see from the side here, it looks like it's a fairly straight-on shot. But as we put it into the into Maya, you're going to see that it's not quite perfect, and we'll just have to compensate for that, and that's okay. Now, you can certainly go through the process of blocking it out and getting everything all set up, but we're going to modify things inside of Maya, because you don't always get perfect pictures that you're going to use as reference images. So we're going to go ahead and kind of play around with that a little bit too to get it all set up. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these three views, and I'm just going to copy them because I don't want to permanently move them. And then I'm going to go into my project, my Maya 2021 projects, the soda can crush, and then right here in my reference images, or source images rather, I'm going to paste that in here. So I have those in my source images. All right. Now with that done, what we want to do is go ahead and go into our quad view here. A couple different ways. You can click on this little 3 pluses and the diamond right here on the side, and that'll get you there. These, of course, are your quick buttons to go to different viewports. If you don't have your outliner open, right here is an outliner button to open it up and close it. If you want to keep your outliner open, of course, you can always click on a tab and it collapses that tab for you. And we can do the same thing with these side ones over here. Makes your modeling area larger, but you still have your different tabs that you need popped open anytime you want them. All right, so again, another way to get to this is if you just put your mouse here in the center, hit the space bar, it'll take you to the quad view as well. Now we have a top view, a front view, and a side view. What I really want is a top view, a bottom view, and a side view. So I'm going to leave this one as the top, and I'm going to change this one to bottom. So by going to my panels tab right here, see how they each have their own little menus at the top. I'm going to go to panels, and I am going to go to orthographic right here, go down to new, and then right here they already have one that's preset called bottom. We're going to change this one to bottom. Okay, now with that done, what we need to do is we need to bring in our images. Now we don't want to put it here in our perspective. Okay, make sure that you are in this quad view, and we're going to put them in top, bottom, and side. So for the top view, I'm going to go ahead and go up here to view, go to image plane, and I'm going to import an image. And that's going to be my top view right there of my soda can. Okay, and you can see that it popped in. We also see it on the bottom view. So that's going to be problematic if we leave it so that it's visible. But I'll show you how to deal with that once we get that far. First, we need to try to get everything scaled to roughly the same size. So we're just going to go ahead and actually I'm going to go ahead and do it now. We'll go ahead and learn how to get this set up. So we put it into our attributes, or channel box rather, over here, down here under display. Okay, so we have this first one selected, and the reason why I'm doing it now is because we're already going to be able to turn on bottom and turn on top, off and on, so that you can see the different images, because they're going to lay over on top of each other if we don't do that. All right, now with the top one selected, over here what we're going to do is if you hover over these different buttons, you can see that it says create a new layer, move selection up and down, new selection list. This is going to be create a new layer and assign selected object. So we have our object already selected. So I'm just going to click that, and that's going to be this layer right here. And I'm just going to double click on the name layer and change it from layer 1 to top view. Okay? And you can see when I do that, okay, that it changes it here, but it doesn't change it anywhere else yet. We can also assign different colors to it and decide kind of a visible, but we're going to change this differently inside there. We'll leave it for all this default right now. We're going to hit save. Now down here it changes it to top view. Over here in my outliner, it doesn't change the name. Okay, this is my image plane. So if I double click on it there, I'm also going to name it the same thing so I know what one this is. All right. Now we have these different buttons down here that do different things for us, and the V makes it visible. If we click on it, okay, and then this is what we're interested in, this third box here. Besides the visible button, this makes it transparent. This one makes it so that we can't select it. So if I click off of it, and of course the terminal was there for me a second ago, we'll double check what the name is, and then it's empty again, and now I can select it again. I can also select it over here if I ever need to. But the purpose of this is to keep us from accidentally being able to select it. Oh, wrong one. There we go, that's right. and being able to move it. Okay. All right. So now the next thing we want to do is we want to bring in the bottom view. And let's go ahead and do that real quick. Let's go ahead and hide this one. And just hit the V button and make it disappear. Down here in the bottom, I'm going to select View. Go to Image Plane again, Import Image. And I'm going to select the bottom image. Say Open. All right. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to add it. Double click on it. We're going to change this to bottom view. Say OK. And then change the image plane name over here to bottom view. Change it to R. And then we're going to make that one transparent. We'll bring the top view back. Now the next thing we want to do is over here in the side view, we're going to do that same thing. We're going to bring in the next image plane. This is the side view. Okay, and then with the side view, what we want to do is add it to our plane here, our display tab down at the lower right hand corner. Again, this is the side view. And actually, double click that. Let's see what that R name is. So right here is normal, template, and then reference. Okay. All right. So now we know what those stand for. And then over here, just going to change this to side view. And then we have it. So now everything's all set up. I am going to pop back over here to my perspective view. So if I hover my mouse in here, hit my space bar, it brings it up. Don't forget, if you forget that, you can also hit these little buttons here on the left-hand side. Now, when I take a look at this, we can see that my scale isn't necessarily correct, and it may not be 100% the way I want it to be here. So let's hit the tab button, go to my side view. So if I hover over my side view, hit the tab bar, it brings it up. What I want to do is I want to make sure that this image is centered here in the middle. Okay. All right. That looks like it's pretty much centered. Very close anyway. Okay. Now if I go back to the perspective view and I kind of rotate down a little bit, I can see that maybe the lid or the top of the soda can is not 100% correct either, and also we need to take a look at the scale here. So I'm going to select my top view here. I'm going to go into my top view, and the can isn't perfectly centered here either. So something like this maybe. So I'm using this little dot here in the center. I'm putting the X position, X and Y right there so that it's set up there in the center. Go back to my view here, see how those look. They're close, but this picture isn't 100% perfect either. All right, so now what I want to do is I want to scale the, let's see, which one do I want to scale? I think I'm going to go ahead and scale the soda can lid down. So from the center, I'm going to just pull it down a little bit until I get this lined up close. And again, this is just a reference to help us get started. And you can see that it's not the perfect picture over here on the side. I am off a little bit. Over here we got these lined up just fine. Okay. Now let's go ahead and do the same thing for the bottom. I'm going to hide the top view, bring back the bottom view, select it over here, and the bottom view is way down there. We can see that right down here. So what I want to do is maybe zoom out a little bit, select it, and with the bottom view right here, we can see that our translation for our Y is at negative 990. Yeah, anyway, let's go ahead and put that at 0 for right now. We're going to push these out of the way once we get everything kind of set up. This is going to allow me to now adjust my bottom of my can. I'm going to scale it. Let's go ahead and make sure that we're centered first, though. And it looks like we might be just a little bit off this way. And this way, maybe. All right. Now let's go ahead and scale this down quite a bit. And again, good chance that the angle isn't set up, and also I may not be perfectly centered. We're going to get it close. Okay, there we go. So now what I want to do is I'm going to push these away from my center area where I'm modeling so I can actually use them a little bit better. So with the W, this is the bottom. I'm going to push it down. We're going to end up seeing it anyway later. All right, and now I'm going to go ahead, and we may have to move this in a different direction, but I'm going to push it out this way, out past my modeling area. And then I want to bring the top view back in, select it here, push it up out of the way as well. All right, so now we should be ready to start. I'm going to go ahead and first things first, what I'm going to do is I am going to, let's see, hide the bottom view. We're going to start with the top view and the side view. And we may want to reverse the positions of the top and the bottom now that I think about it, but we'll see. All right, so next thing we want to do is we're going to go ahead and bring in the object that we're going to use to model with. And in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and use a cylinder since it kind of matches the shape of a can to begin with. And I'm leaving my grid here. I'm leaving the can kind of in the middle of the grid. The grid is something you can always turn off here. Nice and easy to do. And the other thing that we might want to do is, because we're going to try to match this object here, our cylinder, to our can, and you can see, kind of hard to see through it because the can's right behind it as we start to get it closer and closer. Okay, and using our side view, come on, there we go. Using our side view, we can use it to help align everything. But what we might want to do is be able to see through this particular object. Now, there is a way to do it with X-ray. So if we come up here to these little viewports up at the top, if we hover over it, we can X-ray our current or active component, or we can just do a complete X-ray, which will X-ray everything in the scene that is a geometry. That is a method, and it's certainly easy and quick. And then we can use it to scale, and we can turn it on and off simply by hitting this button. Pretty simple to do. Another place you can find it is up here under shading. This is X-ray right here, and you can also see X-ray joints. These are some places where you can find the way everything's displayed. We could also do a wireframe, which is another method of doing this. And again, wireframe is just hitting 4 on your keyboard, and then 5 or 6 brings it back to its textured, or to its untextured shaded view, and then textured view for 6. So certainly a couple different ways. Another way to do this is to assign a new material to it, and then adjusting the transparency level of that material if this material is too transparent for you to see through, or for you to see what you're doing. So there's multiple ways of getting to this, and by transparent, what I mean is for a material, is if you come over here to your attribute editor. Now this is the Lambert material, so if I leave this transparent, everything I'm going to bring in is going to be transparent. But what you could do is you could assign a new material to it and then find your material up here, and this is, like I said, Lambert 1. So Lambert 1 is whatever you change Lambert 1 to, it's going to make it so that everything you bring into your scene after that is going to be exactly like Lambert 1. But right here with the transparency, you can also adjust this and get your transparency to different levels, and then it only affects that model, that piece of the model that you're working on. Again, what I would probably do would be to assign a new material to it instead, and working with it as a Lambert is perfectly okay. So I would call it Lambert, and I might name this Lambert, instead of Lambert 2, call it my X-ray material. That way I know what it is, and then it would only, anything I apply the X-ray material to, then it will take on that characteristics of my transparency here as well. So several different ways to get to the same thing. I'm going to leave it with my X-ray material. That way, if I want to, I can make it more invisible, or I can make it more solid, kind of get a feel back and forth. Again, you can also do that up here just as quick with these little quick buttons. Okay. All right. So now with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and first let's get the height of our can just about correct. All right. So let's see here. Now again, if we remember, I'm taking this picture from a certain angle. Even though I tried to get completely parallel to this object when I took the picture, I did it by hand. I didn't do any measurement. There's certainly better ways to take the photo, but this was just a real quick image that I took the photo of. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to be able to scale this so that it is the right diameter. All right, and we're going to have to go back and forth with this because, again, the pictures aren't perfect. But what I can do, go back to my top view here, and if I zoom in, you can see I have both my side view and my top view. I could also go to set this up here, but then we get into having to assign specific layouts, and then coming back and forth can be kind of problematic. Okay, what did I just do? Oh, the undo cue is turned off. That's nice, and I just completely managed to delete my model. All right, so give me just a second. I'm going to go ahead and figure out what just happened, and then I'm going to show you how to turn the undo cue back on. I don't know why it's off. Maya sometimes just likes to do some crazy stuff to you. So I'm going to pause this video, get me back to where I was just now, and then we'll talk about how to turn on the undo cue. All right, so now I'm back, and we're back to where we were before. Now, what I had accidentally done was this was not in the scale mode, this was in the move mode. I'm going to hit R to make sure I don't do that again. All right, so let's turn on our undo. I don't know why it's turned off. Kind of crazy that sometimes that happens. So let's go ahead and go up here to Windows, and then Settings and Preferences, and it should be under Preferences. Right down here, your undo, and yep, sure enough, it is turned off for whatever reason. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it back on. I have it set to infinite. I don't know why finite, but some people, all the settings are here for whatever you want to do. So once that's done, I'm going to go ahead and hit save, and we should be good to go. I should be able to undo now. Starting from this point forward, anything I've already done, because it wasn't in the queue, isn't going to be there to be saved. Now, I'm going to scale this out so that it matches the scale here on my side view. And it looks like we are there. Okay. Again, this picture wasn't the best. You can see it kind of matches up over here. And what I want to do instead is I'm going to align my image so that it matches up with this area here, since I know that this is off a little bit. I want to make sure that the center part of the can, because what I'm really going to be interested in doing is once I bring the can in at the top, I want to make sure that I line up fairly well with this inner part of this circle right here. I'm not so worried about the side of the can down here. It'll take care of itself with the width over here, but when I start to bring the can inward to match this dimensions along the top, I want to make sure I can match this much better. So for right now, until I get ready to do that, I am going to leave everything alone, and then I'll come back and do that. Now, one of the things I've noticed is that my subdivisions, if you take a look at my subdivisions here, and by going to my poly cylinder 1, they're set at default. I don't have any height subdivisions, which we're going to need if we're going to crush this can. And then we also need to adjust our outer side divisions. But since I'm also going to smooth this can, that will also take care of itself a little bit. So what I think I want to do is jump these up to 30. Actually, I'm going to put it at 40 because I'm kind of curious. When I put it at 40, you can see that it kind of really smooths everything out here, and I don't end up with quite so many subdivisions like I had in that example. The reason why I did 40 is that's about the number of subdivisions when I go to smooth it. So, and it comes out really nice and round at that point. I'm going to leave this subdivision at 20 for the width, for the outer section here, because smoothing is going to solve that issue for me. Now the other thing I want to do is I do want to put in some subdivisions for the height. And if I put in 10, that gives me quite a few subdivisions to work with here on the diameter of my can, and I'm going to put in a couple edge loops, a few edge loops as well, so those will add some additional subdivisions basically. So I am going to leave it at these numbers right here, 20 and 10. These are a lot different than what I had before, but that's okay. We'll get started with that. All right, so now I'm going to jump back over to the side view, and I want to get things lined up here so that I'm matching this section here along the can. So right here at the front on view, even though it doesn't line up on the side, it'll work out because I'm going to line this up with the edge of the can right there. And what I want to do is make this a little bit more transparent. Kind of get a feel for what's happening here. So I can see it, and it looks like it's right there. I'm going to go to edge mode, double click on that, hit W so I can move this up and down, and I'm going to try to get this lined up exactly where I want it. Okay. Now I am going to also put in another edge loop right around the top up here. So I'm going to go back to my object mode, hold down Shift, right mouse click, and hold down the right mouse button. We end up with this insert edge loop, the little square box. Let's select that, and right now it's set for relative distance from edge. That's what I want. Yours may not look like this, so if you hit the reset tool, it takes it back to default. This is the default setup, and we could pick equal distance, which would then push it right and lock it kind of here in the middle, so we couldn't do anything with that. I want to leave it at relative distance from edge, and I'm only putting in one edge loop. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to just click on one of these vertical lines here, and I'm going to move this up so that it lines up right with the bottom of the can there. I also want to put another one in right here, about where the end of this taper upward from the can ends. So the can is going to taper up, and I want it to taper right to that point right there. And I have this taper set up for that, and this should be the very top edge of the can. All right. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the bottom section. We're going to do something similar, but since I'm still with my edge loop, I'm going to put in an edge loop right down here along the base, because the can's pretty straight, right until we get down to this point right around here where we see this coloring of the can down along the bottom. And if you have your physical can, if you have a physical can to look at, you can kind of see how that looks. It's good to have a solid model example sometimes when you're trying to get things lined up. So you can always use that as a reference. Okay, why am I having problems? There we go. All right, so I got that one there, and then down towards the bottom. So this is a pretty even taper that's going to happen. The edge is going to be rounded a little bit, but we'll see how that looks when we smooth the can out a little bit. I am going to put in this additional taper that goes kind of right to there. It's hard to see in this picture, but if you take a look at the side here, you can see that this taper comes down, and then it kind of lines up towards the bottom of the can. And I'm putting that right here because of, again, the angle of the picture. And then we have this little straight lip down here at the bottom. So let me go ahead and show you what I'm talking about. So when we take a look at the can, right down here at the very bottom, you can kind of see that we got this rounding here, and then we got this little lip that happens right here. And then when we take a look on the inside, we'll deal with this on the top and the bottom. But for the top of the can, we also have this taper here, so it's kind of rounded. If you rub your finger over, you can feel it rounded. And then it's kind of straight right up here, and then we have the lip for the top of the can right there. So those are some of the things that we're going to try to capture in this detail. Now with this can, while we're talking about detail, we're going to put some detail here in the inside of the can, but we're not going to model necessarily the tab this time, because this model is actually going to be used more as a kind of something you see off to the side, kind of a background model in like a game or in a scene or something. This isn't necessarily going to be an advertising can, all right? So we're not going to make a model that we're going to use for advertising, okay? Now, if you did want to make a highly detailed can for a close-up, something that you would use like for advertising, or something that someone would be holding in their hand that would get zoomed in on inside of a video, then you certainly do want to put as much detail in it as you can. And as far as the tab goes, I like to use shapes that are already available. I do see people, build up their own model, but what I would use for this, I would start with a cube, put in some subdivisions, and start to push and pull the vertices and edges into this shape. Probably cut out the center there, and then bridge in around the edges and do some smoothing of it and be done with it. But we're not going to do that this time. So let's go ahead and capture this bottom little lip down here. So this is where the taper is going to be, and we're going to need to be able to put in another edge loop right around in here towards the bottom. So now we're going to capture that little lip at the bottom of the can. All right, so we've got most of that set up. I'm going to go ahead, close this. I'm going to hit Q on my keyboard. Let me go ahead and get rid of my head out of this picture. So again, right down here along the bottom, I put in a lip that's where I put that little lip in right there towards the edge. This is where the taper happens. So we got the taper coming down, and then we're going to have this little lip right there. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and hit Q to quit the edge loop tool. I'm going to go to vertices. Okay. And what I want to do is in the side view, I'm going to do a Marquee Select right here. Hit R on my keyboard. And what I want to do is actually do this now. I'm going to go into this view here and here. So I want to have these two views side by side. One thing we can do to help make it so we can see is we can grab, if we hover right here in the center, you see these little white dotted lines. We can change our viewport, and I can zoom in and start to scale this down a little bit. I can take a closer look here. You can see that the can is really kind of off here. And I may have the overall scale of the can just a little off, but we're going to approximate it. So I'm going to get the taper in right here, and I can see that I've matched the angle pretty well right here along the edge of the can. It looks like I've got this line pretty straight, although this is the outer line that should be lining up here. But I have the can just a little bit off. All right, so now with that done, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to Marquee Select these top two. And bring those in just a little bit as well. Actually, they're straight up and down. I'm going to leave those alone the way they are right now. let's go ahead and go work on the bottom real quick. And do the same thing. I'm in Marquee Select. This last bottom section down here. And switch to my bottom view. So go back to my channel box over here. Hide the top view. And we can't, obviously we can't see anything at all now. So that is one of the issues we're going to have, because that was the bottom view, even though I was using it for the top. So if I zoom in a little bit on this one, I can see that I have it right here. And I'm going to go ahead and zoom in down here. And I'm going to go ahead and just bring these in a little bit and start to taper it. Kind of match the angle in here. Now it's very sharp. It's not nice and rounded like what we saw. This is the start. And then if we take a look at it, this little section right down here should be, all right, let's see here. This section right here, let's see, this should taper in down here. Whoops, don't do that. So let's go to our side view real quick. All right, so we have this side view coming in here. We have this segment right here, which is going to be our little flat piece that comes up down there. And that's going to be the general shape of the can. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to approximate the angle of my bottom part of my can here. That's what we're doing. We've got this angle. It looks pretty decent. Okay. And then this is going to be the lower lip. That's going to be straight. So we may, let's see here. What we're going to need to do is we're going to need to grab these bottom two. What we want to do is we want to bring those in. Let's see what that looks like. There we go. All right, I'm going to match that same angle there. And might be just a little bit too sharp, so let's bring it back out just a little bit. Something like that. There we go. All right. Let's take a look at our top again, just to make sure. Okay. Yeah, this is going to have that same effect done to it. We're going to need to bring that in just a little bit. So let's go ahead, hide the bottom view, bring up the top view. And with this top section selected, I think this area is a little bit too big. If we take a look at the can, we can see that this area up in here shouldn't be so large. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to push that down just a little bit. I'm going to select W. I'm going to push this down a little bit, even though it's going to kind of not match the picture in the background. I think the angle of the photograph isn't quite right, because for the scale wise, if we take a look at the can, this area right here is actually fairly small. All right. And this segment right in here that we put in, let's see. I'm going to go to my edge view, double click on that. So you see the lip right here, but it seems like we have this curve right in here, but that is, I don't think that is actually what we're seeing here. So I'm going to double click on this edge right there. I'm going to hit Control. Make sure you hold Control and delete it. If you don't do Control Delete, you're going to end up with this vertices left over. You don't want to have any individual vertices in here. Okay. So if I hit Control Z, and if I just hit delete, you'll see what I'm talking about. So now if I hover over it, see how it looks like my segments are broken? And if I go to vertex, I got all these individual little vertices just hanging out in here. We don't want to have that, okay? You want to make sure you don't do that. So that's why Control Delete not only deletes the edges, but it also deletes the vertices assigned to those edges. Okay, and the reason why I did that was just to get rid of that extra segments that we don't really need. I think this is about right. We may need to come back in because it doesn't seem to be matching up, but I don't see the extra, I don't see the little extra line in there. We just have this kind of taper down here, and then we have the little lip down here at the bottom. I think this just isn't quite the way it actually looks because of the size of the taper. And we may need to double click here. If I bring this straight up, it's going to change this taper a little bit, but it's going to give me a bigger lip. And that might match it a little bit better. All right, so now we've got the general shape here set up. So let's do something with this top area right here that we're going to need to kind of fix. Okay, so let's go ahead and go into my object mode. I think what I want to do is go back up here and kind of take a look and see what the can is looking like right now. So we can kind of see that we've taken on the dimensions of the shape of the can. What we need to do is we need to start working on some of the detail on the bottom and on the top. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and hide the top view for the moment. Make sure that all of these have R in them, so I can't accidentally select it. All right, and now what I want to do is go ahead and first I'm going to bump this little section out here. That's quick and easy. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my face mode. I'm going to zoom in here. I'm going to click the first one, go to the second one, hold the shift button and double click, and it's going to select all of that section there. And then with the top view turned on, I'm going to do a Control E to extrude it. And I'm going to hit R on my keyboard. And I'm going to use this little square right here, okay? I'm going to pull that out, and I'm just going to pull this out just a little bit, just so I get a little tiny bump on the output there. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit up here. And let's see, okay, that's just a little bit, I think maybe a little bit more maybe. Oh, there we go. Let's take a look at that. All right, so we got our little lip up there. Now what we need to do is we need to start working on some of the details here on the inside. And what we want to do is, I'm going to go into the wireframe mode. So go back to object mode. And I am going to go back to my attributes editor, go into my X-ray material, and I'm going to turn my transparency off so I can kind of see what's happening here. Just to get a start. What I want to do is I want to select this top section up here. So all of these right in here. And I want to push it down. So we're going to extrude it in a downward direction. And that's where having a little model of the can could be useful, or having an actual soda can, rather, instead of a model. So if I go back into my top view, and we can see that even though this is bottom, this is the bottom view, and this is the top view, this is the one we want right here. I'm going to go to edge mode. I'm going to do a Marquee Select. Select those, and when I do that, what's going to happen is it's also going to select these bottom ones down here. So I think what a better thing would be to do is to come over here to my side view, zoom out just a little bit, do a Marquee Select, select everything, and then what I want to do is I want to deselect the edges I don't want. Okay, and this might be a little bit tougher, but we'll see how this works. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. I'm going to hold my shift button and I'm going to do a marquee select kind of from this section right here. Try to grab all of that and then select it. And it should deselect everything except for my very top view. And I don't want this outer selection selected either. So whatever one is easier for you to see, what we need to do is we need to zoom in right here. And if I hold the shift button and then just deselect as I go along, this might actually be easier in the perspective view. So I can rotate the can around. Come on. Ah. The other thing we got to be careful of not doing is dragging your mouse across here as you're working. Because then what's going to happen is you're going to select, accidentally, other edges that you don't want to select, right? Okay, so that should be all of the outer section. And also I don't want these inner lines right there. I see that those are selected as well. So let's go ahead and deselect those as well. So I'm just going to click. If you hover over, you see you can get a plus or a minus. You want the minus button because you're deselecting. You want to make sure you're deselecting the right section. Okay. Good job. Let's see here. I don't know why I'm having such a tough time. Still haven't gotten used to this new mouse. Switch to the ergonomic style mouse, and it's just kind of slowed me down. Alright, so all of those are deselected. I've only got the one selected that I want, I believe. One way to tell is make sure that this makes sense. Right now it's in the center of my selection and it's on the top surface. If we were to accidentally select something that we didn't want to select, it would change the orientation of our gizmo there. But sometimes it's always a good idea just to do a real quick once over, especially if there's other really close geometry. All right, so now what we want to do is Control E, and I'm going to go ahead and hit the W button to put it back towards the center, and I'm going to push this down. Okay, what did I do here? Let's do Control E, W. Oh. Okay, so yeah, I spent all that time doing that, and that was awesome. But let's go ahead and select it as faces. Oh my goodness. All right, I'm going to go ahead and select these as faces. I don't know what I was doing. There we go. So now what I'm going to do is deselect the faces on the bottom. This will be much faster. I thought about it, sitting here talking instead of doing what I should be doing. We want to select faces. If we do the edges, all that's happening is I'm extruding edges straight down. We do not want to do that. Make sure you Control Z out of that. And I'm going to select this one back that I just accidentally deselected. And I selected that one by accident. There we go. All right. So now let's try that again. Perspective view, Control E. I would explain why it was taking so long. W in the center. Now we're going to push it down just a little bit. We're going to push it down past the surface level. Actually, we're going to put it right. I think it does go just a little bit below this. And you can see that this is the bottom section of this lip up here. And we want to actually push this down past that just a little bit. We take a look at our can. making things kind of messy in there. We're actually, yeah, we're going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead and push it down just a little bit. When I do that, you can see that we've got this passing through where we have the surfaces really close to each other, and I've busted through them. But the model of the can, if we take a look at the lip of a soda can, the lid is actually below that lip a little bit more than on the inside than it appears to be. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to quit that tool. With the faces still selected, I'm going to hit R, and I'm going to just go ahead and bring these in just a little bit. It may have been a little bit more than I intended. Just a little bit until I get, okay. So I get rid of those, and I think that'll be all right there. Okay, so now we got the first part of our can pushed down, and this rim goes down a little bit further. And what we want to do now is we're going to put in another edge loop in here on the inside in this area, and it's not really going to be an edge loop, it's going to be a connecting line. We're going to connect these together, and we're going to push it out so that there's a very thin, if you take a look at the top of a soda can, let's go ahead and take a look at it. So if you take a look at the top of the soda can, I don't know if you can see it very well, but we have this little bump up here. So what happens is we've got this push down, and then we got this pull up. Okay, so there's like a valley down in here, sort of a drip catch, so it's not sitting on the top of the can. So we're going to go ahead and put that back in, and hopefully we've pushed this down far enough so that we can do that. And let me see if I push this down just a little bit more. Since we tapered it in, you might be able to push it down just a little bit more to give us as much of an effect as we want. I think that's going to be good. All right, so now what I've done is I've actually, with the faces still selected, just pushed them down because we've already created this inner area, and when we squeezed it in just a little bit, that allows us to be able to kind of lower it a little bit further down into the lid or the top of the can here. All right, so now let's go ahead, and we do want to select those edges this time. And it'd probably be easier to go to the edge mode, do a marquee select, and just select here in the center. And that was a bad idea. Let's try that again, do it from the top view. So we do want to select these, but we're going to have to deselect these down here on the bottom. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the shift key and just select these individually. Another good reason to keep the subdivisions down low. All right, so with all of those deselected, let's just double check to make sure that we don't have any selected that we don't want to have selected. Okay, our gizmo's there in the center, so it looks like it's pretty good. All right, so what we want to do is we're going to go ahead and in any one of these where you can see what's happening, go ahead and right click and hold, and hold the shift button down, right click and hold. And what we want to do is we want to go down to here where it says connect tool, and we're just going to go ahead and hover over that and let go. And what it's done is it's connected this here in the center for us. And now if we hit R on the keyboard with those still selected, we can go ahead and scale these out to the outer edge of our can and create that little valley. What we're going to end up doing is creating this valley down in there. Something like that right there. Okay? Now, I've left a little bit of a distance between the outer edge of the can and this inner loop that we just created. All right? So I'm going to quit that tool. And now I'm going to go ahead and right click and hold and go back to my face mode this time. And I'm going to select the faces again, deselect them down here on the bottom. Let me go ahead and get my head out of the way so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so now with that selected and we have this area set up the way we want it, I'm going to go ahead and hit W on my keyboard to make sure I just have that section selected. Nothing else accidentally selected. Okay, Control E again to extrude it. And this time I'm going to hit W again. And what I want to do is I want to bring up the top of this just a little bit. So I'm going to position myself here so I can see what's happening in my perspective view. And then from my top, or my side view right here, I'm going to grab that and I'm going to drag it up just a little bit. And yep, I managed to do it. Look at that. Right there. I've got that selected just ever so slightly. I didn't even see it. So right there. All right. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and deselect that and deselect this. Now I know that I'm gone far enough back. All right. And it looks like I've selected this one right there. Okay. Make sure I've got nothing else selected. All right, let's try that again. Control E. W to bring it into the center and use just the move tool for the extrusion. And I'm going to pull it up just a little bit. Create that valley down in there. But not bring the can lid up so much that it's going to create a situation. And make it look unrealistic. Just a little bit more, maybe. All right. All right, so now we've got the top part of the can kind of outlined. And we're going to use an image to overlay over the top of this to give it that tab look for this one. So that image that I've got a picture of, I'm going to end up putting it into Photoshop, cutting it to fit so that it works the way we want it to. And I'll show you how to do all that. So the last thing we want to do, and then I'll stop this video, is maybe put a little bit more detail into the can on the lid. And actually I think because we're just going to use an image, and again we don't want to get this too detailed, what we could do is we could put in another connecting tool and adjust it to fit the way the top of the can looks. And if I go back to the channel box, bring in the top view, see how this section right here has kind of a downward push to it. We certainly could put that in there. We're not going to put in this tab anyway, so and this is all going to be part of an image. This is kind of where you can make that decision if that's something you want to try to do. Again, what you do is you would use that connecting tool and you would use the connector and put that in there to get that set up. What we're going to do is we're going to move on. You would shape the connector so it would be this shape right here, and then you could just extrude it downward, and that would give you this push in down here. I'm not going to get into that this time. What we're going to do instead is we're going to move forward so that we can smooth this can out and get it all ready for us to do texturing, which will be in the next video. Okay, so let's see here. Let me back out just a little bit. Let's go into our perspective view. We're going to put in some edge loops to kind of control the way the smoothing will work. So if I go to my object mode now, and what I mean by that is, oh, you know what? The one thing we haven't done is the bottom of the can. So let's do that real quick before we get into smoothing. Now that I take a look at it, let's get this done. So let's go ahead and pretty much the same process we used before. Hide those. We're going to go ahead and go into the face view. We're going to select this, and we're going to deselect this up here. Okay, make sure that we didn't select anything else we don't want. Right, again, we're going to use the connecting tool. So if you hold the shift, right click, and go down to connect tool. And we didn't do this by edges, but let's see here. Okay, that's not gonna work. Okay, let's go ahead and hit the Q tool and quit. All right, so I didn't hit enter. That's fine. Let's go ahead and go to fade or go to edge mode. Try that again. Sorry about that. I'm just trying to get all of this done in a timely manner for you, and I'm just making a couple little mistakes as we move along, but that's okay. I think it's good for you to see that everybody makes a little bit of mistakes and how to catch them before you make them worse, and how to fix them if you do. Alright, so there we go. Now we've got that. Right click, hold the connect, go to connect tool. We want to push this out towards the edge because of that bottom lip. So we're going to R on that keyboard, and we're going to bring this out. So we have this nice little segment right in here. And that might be just a little bit too close, maybe something like that. All right, so now we've got that first one. We're going to need to put another connecting tool in here. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Q to quit. And we need to, again, select these edges. So I'm going to come up here so I don't accidentally go too far. I'm going to select just those, come back down here, and, or actually up here, and deselect these on the top. And hold the shift button, right mouse button click, and select the connect tool. And that one I'm just going to leave right about there, because if we take a look at the bottom of the can, when you look at the bottom of the can, it sort of curves up quite a bit, and then there's less of a indent here. So it all indents upward, but I think we're going to leave it that way. And instead of extruding it, what we're going to do is I'm going to hit Q to quit that. What we want to do is we want to select all of these again. So I'm going to go ahead and do a Marquee Select and select all of these edges. Okay, because we are going to do it by edges this time. So right across here, deselect the top again. Okay, hit W on my keyboard, and then from the side view, I want to make sure that I pull it straight up. I'm going to pull it straight up, start to pull it this way, so we start to get that indent happening just a little bit. That's a little bit more than I wanted. Okay. And now hit Control Z. Let's undo that. So what we want to do first is, because we do have this little bit of a lip right here, I was hoping we could just pull this down, but now I look at it, I'm thinking, no, that's not going to quite be what we want it to be. We do need to make this an actual solid lip of metal around here. So let's go ahead and go back to our face mode and select all these faces. Okay, again, deselect up here. And we're going to have to do an extrude. I was thinking we could get away without it, but it just doesn't look quite right. Alright, so now with that in the center, making sure that we have nothing else selected by accident, go ahead and do a Control E. Control E. There we go. W. And I'm going to go ahead and pull this up just a little bit. Shoot it just in just a little bit. Something like that. So that gives me that lip right there. Okay, Q to quit. Now we're going to go ahead and go back to our edges again. Actually, yeah. What we're going to do instead of that is, because this is going to be, I want this to be kind of curved in, so it's giving me a little bit of a taper, and this is going to be a little bit more flat. What I'm going to do is I'm going to deselect just these outer faces right here. And with those selected, I'm going to hit W on my keyboard. I'm going to pull this up just a little bit, and I start to get that taper like at the bottom of the can there. All right. I might exaggerate it just a little bit more because as we go to smooth this, it's going to kind of remove some of this detail just a little bit. All right, so now we've got that. And if I wanted to, I could, you know what? I think that's still a little bit too big. I'm going to hit R on my keyboard. Let's go ahead and just taper this in a little bit, something like that. And now I can go to vertice. Just select that center vertice, hit W. I'm going to pull that in just a little bit, pull that up. Kind of give that additional taper that's a little bit different than the taper around the surrounding area. All right, so now let's go ahead and work on smoothing the can out. If I select it right now, and if I do the smoothing, so if I go to mesh, and then right here, smooth option box, leave it at division levels 1, and I apply it, it's going to increase everything significantly, but let's see kind of what we end up with here. I'm going to go ahead and see that this outer section right here is not bad, but this is much more squared off on a regular soda can. And then this top area actually came out pretty decent. And the bottom area is not too bad, but I think we can do better. Okay. Let's go ahead and put a couple edge loops in to kind of tighten this area up here. So I'm going to hit Control Z to undo that smoothing. And I'm going to put some edge loops in. So I'm going to close this real quick. Hold the shift button, right click, edge loops. And again, I know that we left it with relative distance from the edge. And what I want to do is, the way an edge loop works is it calculates the distance between the lines, and then it puts in an angle of smoothing between those lines. And the further the distance apart, of course, the greater the curve is going to be. The closer they are, the less of a curve there's going to be. So I'm going to go ahead and put a couple of these on the edges here, right near the end of the edge right there. So it does round just a little bit. I also want to do it on the underside here. Just so we get a slight bevel on those. And we could put a bevel in and then completely take this out, but we're going to do it this way. This outer one may not be far enough apart. You can always come back and adjust those. One down here towards the bottom. And on this as well. Okay, that's right. Can't do that there. We'd have to put a connector in out here. But there is a little bit of rounding, and we'll see what that looks like once we get that done. But I am going to put it here. Avoid doing a connector unless we need to. Down there, and then come down here. I want that taper to kind of smooth around into this a little bit because that's how it looks on the can. So I'm going to leave that one alone, but here on the bottom of the can, I want this to be a little bit more controlled on the taper. I want to control a little bit more. And then I'm going to let that naturally round out there. All right, so let's see what this looks like for us now. I'm going to hit Q to quit. Go back to object mode. Open up my smoothing tool. I'm just going to leave it at division level for 1. I'm going to hit apply. When I do that, I get this kind of tapering down through here that I'm wanting. And I may have wanted to put some subdivisions in on the can, but at this point, because we still have some of this starring here. All right. But I don't want to get too crazy with the subdivisions. What we could do is see what it looks like. We bump this up to 2. End up with a lot of subdivisions, similar to what I had before, but it does smooth out the can a lot more. All right. That is the start of our soda can. This has been an hour and 11 minutes to make a real quick can and get everything all set up. So we're going to go ahead and stop the video here. And the next video will be about doing our UVs and getting our textures set up. So we're going to use Photoshop this time to do our texturing. So that is it. Make sure you close this. Let's go ahead and save. I've never saved this, which is bad practice. Should have been saving often. And I haven't actually saved this scene name yet either. So I have no scenes in here. So let's go ahead and do a save scene as. Should have done that at the very beginning. And this is going to be my, I'm just going to call this the soda can. So this will be my soda can. And then other ones will be saved as soda can crush or something like that. But anyway, so now we've saved it. And that should be it for this. Thanks for watching my video. If you are interested, please check out some of my other videos on Paul Fritz Animation on my YouTube channel, and subscribe and like, and join me for the next video, part 2 for this, to do our UVs and our texturing. Thanks again, and have a great day.